gas. You know,
why would it achieve decarbonisation?
Well, I think many decarbonisation policies could be facilitated by cheap electricity, because there is a need to move things, if you do want to take them away from fossil fuels, onto electrified products. So cheap energy on its own would enable a lot of that to happen. But what we need to concentrate on is the framework. We need to have a competitive framework which can get costs down. And it's disappointing to see so many businesses jump on this Inflation Reduction Act bandwagon, because actually, you know, putting all of this government money and businesses chasing government money when they should be chasing, you know, their consumers by providing products that they want to use and are cheap to use. So they need to refocus on what they're about. It seems that businesses seem to think that their objective is to reduce emissions. Their objective is to provide goods and services that people want to use. And so I think they should deprioritise decarbonisation, concentrate on what they do best, and we may well see emissions come down as a happy consequence.
Speaking of focusing on objectives, Sam, I want to talk about the High Court last year finding the government inadequate. They were unlawful. They were failing to show how the UK would hit those legally binding carbon targets, failing significantly in missing those targets. Do you think that today's announcements will go far enough in redressing that?
I think they go, you know, they make several steps in the right direction. They firm up some of the plans that were maybe a bit vague and where the government hadn't yet announced that certain projects were going ahead. And they introduced a few new measures as well, and bringing forward the dates, for example, of this rebalancing of the levies across gas and electricity is a step which will speed up decarbonisation. And the other change, which goes to some of what Harry was saying about getting more cheap electricity online, is speeding up some planning decisions. So they're bringing out new planning guidance, which will mean that we won't have wind farms stuck in planning for many years, delaying the time at which they can come onto the grid and start bringing down bills. So I do think that today's plans will accelerate our net zero ambition, as well as strengthen energy security at the same time. Whether it'll be enough to satisfy the High Court, you know, we need to see the plan in detail to be able to analyse that. But I think just stepping back, I think, you know, there's a key environmental imperative here. Just a couple of weeks ago, the UN IPCC report said that we have a very limited time frame now in which to limit the global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees. Every country needs to be doing more if we were to stop really damaging.
See, Harry, that's the thing, an imperative, and they said we had a limited time to do this. And your view is what? That is not as important as us living within our means and having affordable energy?
Well, all of these things are important, but I would emphasise some of the exaggeration that we've been seeing from the United Nations. 1.5 degrees was a purely political target, and we see worst-case scenarios presented as actually being likely. But when you look at the science behind climate change, you'll see that, you know, many extreme weather types are becoming less damaging because we're becoming better at adapting to them. You know, deaths from extreme weather have been falling and falling. They're down, you know, 95% over the last 100 years. That doesn't mean to
say we should screw the whole planet.
Absolutely not. We should concentrate on leaving a better planet for the future. But that's so much more than carbon dioxide. And you know, that's about conservation. It's about how we look after our water supplies. It's about so many things. And this narrow focus on carbon dioxide is actually distracting us from a more holistic picture about caring for the environment.
Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that there is a range of environmental issues that we need to take seriously, and I think, you know, the government does have strong plans as well to tackle biodiversity. It's looking at how we can clean up our rivers and our water quality. But, you know, climate change is a major threat. It makes all of these other problems so much worse as well. It starters of the water, which means that our water environments are, you know, there's less water for biodiversity to thrive there. It makes species harder to exist in their current ranges. So, you know, it really does exacerbate all of our other environmental challenges, and I think that's one of the many reasons, alongside the economic rationale, which we've talked about with countries competing to have these green technologies, alongside the political rationale that voters desperately want to see politicians take climate change seriously. It's still in the top 4 issues for voters, you know, and the environmental one that we've talked about. So I think the government is right to be focusing on it. It shouldn't be ashamed of doing so. We need to do our bit to hand on a better planet to future generations, but of course we can need cheap energy as well.
Just a yes/no answer to both of you. First of all, to you, Sam. Do you think that Rishi is greener than Boris or not?
I think the same.
And to you, Harry.
No, marginally.
OK. Well, we'll leave it there. Harry Wilkinson, Net Zero Watch, and Sam Hall, Conservative Environment Network. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. 7:10 is the time. We move on to Scotland, and the new leader there, Humza Yousaf, will face his first Minister's questions today as he claims his party is more unified than ever.
Yesterday, he selected his top team, and the cabinet was, for the first time, made up of a majority of women. Well, joining us for more is Michael Blackley. He's political editor at the Scottish Daily Mail. Day one in the job, what did you make of it?
Well, it was quite an interesting start. It was certainly quite a big overhaul of the cabinet by Humza Yousaf. He brought in a lot of people. There's a slightly younger feel to the cabinet. Half of them are under the age of 40. And as you say, there's a majority of women as well, which is a significant development. But I think what we'll look at now is what this means for the splits within the SNP, because Humza Yousaf has brought in a lot of his allies, a lot of his supporters during the campaign into his cabinet, but there's not any spaces for anybody that fought against him, despite it being an exceptionally close leadership contest. So that really could be the interesting issue, whether the people on the backbenches that opposed his leadership challenge could become a bit of a problem for him.
I think a bigger problem now, because we've got no Kate Forbes, and she represented a lot of those people, Michael. So what happens now to Kate Forbes, and what happens to the void that she's left cabinet-wise?
Yes, I think that's going to be fascinating, because in most people's eyes, especially outside of the SNP, Kate Forbes is an exceptionally talented politician. And we saw that during the leadership campaign, she run Humza Yousaf exceptionally close. It was 48% in the final round of voting that she secured. So it's a bit of a risk to have her on the backbenches. When he was getting voted in, Humza Yousaf made a very deliberate ploy of going to the backbench and embracing Kate Forbes in front of everyone there, a show of unity perhaps. But I think that could become a bit of an issue. We saw that with Rishi Sunak when he lost in the Conservative leadership contest. Having somebody on the backbenches really means that you've got a very visible, obvious threat to your leadership there. So that could be a real issue. I think another concern about having her on the backbench is that there might be a view that this government is going to be pretty anti-business. She and other pro-business voices have been forced out, and I think there's a real concern there amongst the business community that maybe this government might not stand up for them.
OK, Michael, I can see all those consequences there. My question is, why did Humza Yousaf allow that to happen? I mean, when he was elected as leader, there was a visible embrace. Kate Forbes grabbing him, hugging him, practically licking him at some stage there. And then the great insult. So she's moved from finance to rural affairs. I mean, he knew what he was doing. Why did he allow that to happen? Why did he walk into that predicament?
Yes, I think that could ultimately be his first major mistake as First Minister in offering her that rural affairs position. It was a position that she might have taken. She represents a northern constituency, and obviously she'll respect the importance of a rural affairs job. However, there's no doubt that was a big demotion from the role of Finance Secretary, really the most powerful job in Cabinet. So he moved her. I think his concern might have been some of the issues that came up in the leadership contest and whether she could be in such a frontline job when she opposes, for example, the deposit return scheme, which he is likely to be pushing through, and she opposes the gender reforms legislation, which Humza Yousaf is going to be pushing through. So I think ultimately he didn't want her in his most senior job because of some of the views that she expressed during the divisive leadership contest.
Michael, we're focusing a lot on Kate Forbes being on the backbenches, but let's not forget, amongst the backbenches will also be Nicola Sturgeon. What sort of contribution can we expect to see from her going forward?
Yes, indeed. It's been a criticism of the SNP for some time that their backbenches are pretty terrible quality. So at least one thing that's happened from this is the backbenches have improved in quality. It will be interesting to see Nicola Sturgeon, John Swinney as well, the Deputy First Minister, Kate Forbes. There's a few other people that were potential cabinet ministers that are going to be on the backbenches. So it'll be fascinating to see the contribution they make. I don't think Nicola Sturgeon is going to be a problem for Humza Yousaf. I wouldn't expect her to be publicly challenging him on too many issues. I think Nicola Sturgeon is probably going to be fairly quiet and ultimately winding down before probably bowing out of politics at the next election. So I think probably more likely to be the sort of figure on the backbenches that Gordon Brown was after he left as Prime Minister, rather than an active campaigning backbencher such as Theresa May, for example.
OK, good stuff. Michael Blackley, political editor of the Scottish Daily Mail. Thanks for your overview. Appreciate it.
Thank you. The time now, 16 minutes past 7. Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's stories. Plans to increase the state pension age to 68 have been delayed, and the age is due to rise in 2044, but it had been reported in various newspapers that ministers were planning to bring that forward to 2035.
Schools are failing to inform parents as soon as a child questions their gender identity. A report by the Policy Exchange found safeguarding principles are being routinely disregarded in many schools.
The Vatican says Holy Father Pope Francis has a respiratory infection and will need to spend a few days in hospital for treatment. It's understood the 86-year-old had complained of breathing difficulties in recent days.
Now to Germany. The King has pledged to strengthen connections between Britain and the country in his first state banquet speech of his reign.
So His Majesty and the Queen Consort have a packed diary during a 3-day visit to Berlin and Hamburg. Our royal reporter Cameron Walker looks back at their first day.
A state visit at the start of a new reign. For the first time, a ceremonial welcome awaited the King and Queen Consort in the shadow of the iconic Brandenburg Gate. Once a symbol of division, now one of unity. That's the purpose of this trip. Buckingham Palace calls it a celebration of shared histories, culture and values. And British officials are aiming to strengthen friendly ties to Germany in a post-Brexit world. And German royal fans seem to agree.
I think he can help healing the wounds that Brexit has caused.
To promote the British culture, the British economic, and it's, I'm very jealous that I don't have that.
Their Majesty's global fame drew crowds of well-wishers to central Berlin, and they made a point of personally meeting local school groups and royal fans who waited hours to catch a glimpse of them. Cardboard crowns were also on display, perhaps a nod to Charles wearing the real thing in less than 6 weeks' time. No other head of state has ever been offered such a welcome at Brandenburg Gate. So is this a big boost for Britain? The UK government will hope the monarchy's power of soft diplomacy will propel British interests on a global stage. A platform Charles used at a magnificent state banquet hosted by the German president in his honour.
Our countries are working together to promote global health, to help developing countries overcome their challenges and prosper, and to advance the urgent and vital journey towards net zero. We stand together with Ukraine in defense of freedom and sovereignty in the face of unprovoked aggression.
At the banquets, the King spoke of the warmth and friendship between our two nations. He also praised Germany for taking in more than 1 million Ukrainian refugees. He is expected to address the German Parliament, becoming the first British monarch to do so. Cameron Walker, GB News, Berlin.
20 past 7. As rents skyrocket, we'll ask, have landlords been unfairly villainised? We're debating that, whether you're a tenant or a landlord.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories, controversies and issues.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
It's 5 times the opinion, 5 times the debate, and 5 times the fun. The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You could wink at the end. I can't Britain's wink. Listening.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Welcome back, 7:24.
Right, still to come on the programme today, just look ahead to everything from mobile phone bills, water rates and even prescription costs are going up in price. So at 7:45, we're going to be asking consumer rights expert Martin James what you can do to protect yourself from the pinch.
And as Charles Bronson prepares to hear if his request for parole has been granted at 8:45, we'll ask his ex-wife if she thinks he should be freed and what he would do first if he is.
And you can join in and you may have a few suggestions as to what he should do if he is freed. GBViews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GBNews.
What's the first thing you would do if you were suddenly and unexpectedly released from jail?
Well, I would enjoy freedom, outdoor spaces,
yes,
parks,
trees,
forests, waterfalls,
restaurants,
just things
being
like
with
that.
family. That's what I'd want to do. Is
I
go
know-
home and be at home, have a cup of tea with my mum and dad and children.
Well, I've spent more weeks than I would care to in hospitals in the past year, and people say prisons have an easy time and whatever. I had a luxury environment in comparison, but just to be confined to a bed or a corridor or a particular floor is pretty depressing. So I think the whole prison environment just would crave freedom.
Yeah, of course.
Freedom outdoors. Now, as part of the government's new energy strategy, landlords will be forced to meet net zero targets within 5 years, or they will be banned from letting.
But with rents going up by more than 10%, that's, it's getting up a lot more than that in some places. Is it renters or landlords who are actually the real victims here?
Right, well, here to thrash this one out, CEO of Generation Home, that's Will Rice, who believes renters are mistreated. Abdul Karim, on the other hand, is a landlord who thinks the government is putting landlords against renters. What do you mean by that, Abdul?
So, with Section 24 coming in place, interest rate rises and rent rises, it's all the landlords I know are finding it more difficult, if not they're trying to get out of the game because of all these changes and costs going up.
They're trying to get out of the game?
Yeah.
So a lot of people would see this as just like, manna from heaven. You just sit there and it's easy money. It's easy to make money as a landlord. Not as easy as it used to be?
I wouldn't say it's easy really at all, because to get the deposit for a house, if you're buying in London, for example, that's a lot of money to tie down in capital. And if you want to get your property rented out, you need to find the tenants or find a good agency. Then you've got your tax that you need to take care of. You need to make sure the place is in good maintenance. We've got these energy costs, all these things that you need to take care of and provide a good experience.
Well, Will, I can almost hear all those renters thinking, well, you know what, I'd love to have those problems. I can only dream of, just being a good landlord. But it's tough out there for renters, arguably harder than ever.
I think it is harder than ever. It's actually brutal and really concerning that it's very difficult to see any light at the end of the tunnel. So a report came out yesterday from Zoopla that showed that the number of renters in the market at the moment, so people looking for properties, is 50% higher than the 5-year average. And the supply of rental properties is 33% below the 5-year average. So, I mean, that tells the story in itself. There's an enormous squeeze. And you ask, where are these numbers coming from? There's a pretty simple dynamic. In the last 12 months, we had net migration was around about 500,000. So the population of the UK in total grew by over 500,000 people, and the number of new properties that we added was about 200,000. And this is happening year after year. So the squeeze on available supply of property is something that has been building for a while, and at the moment there's really no signs of that dynamic changing.
And I suppose a huge change in our living habits as well. Lots of people living on their own in a way that, divorces, for example, whereas people would stay as a couple in houses, often that's now 2 households, and that's much more...
That's spot on. The fragmentation of households and the nuclear family has meant that more housing supply is required for the given number of people in the overall population. So with that combined with the overall growth in population and very slow growth in housing stock, it's a recipe for trouble.
Abdul, what would your case be for needing landlords? Why, as a country, do we need landlords?
Well, everybody needs a home. And at the end of the day, if we didn't have landlords, what would be the alternative? I feel like it's very good to encourage everybody to even be a landlord, as opposed to it being landlords versus renters. How do we help renters get onto the property market? There's lease options in place where you can rent a property to buy. You can rent a property from your landlord and have the option to buy it in the future. You can get on the property market, and I feel like everybody should appreciate from the equity that there is when the property market grows. So I don't feel like it's a case of whether landlords should not exist. I feel like, how can we make it more easy for everybody to be a landlord?
Well, it would make it maybe more easy for everyone to be a landlord if the government built more social housing, wouldn't we?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I run a property management company called Ace Investment Properties, and all the landlords I know, they're finding it very hard to be in the game, as in they want to sell, they want to get out because of this Section 24. And Section 24 is also known as a tenant tax, because they've made it very difficult for landlords to deduct their interest from the mortgages, which gets rid of all the profits in the market. So when you've got a tenant in a property, you can't deduct your interest from your tax bill. And for the viewers, essentially, if you were getting rent of £1,000, the tax on that, you pay 40%. Or you could deduct your mortgage interest of £400, and you'd only pay tax on the £600, which would leave you around £200 in tax. Now you're paying tax on the 40% of £1,000, which is £400, which doubles. So imagine you're running a business and your costs double. not to mention the increase in interest rates of, let's say if your interest was £300, now £500. So literally all the profit is gone for landlords, and it's very difficult to be in the market. So.
But, Will, there are ways to be a landlord, perhaps not well advertised, that are actually tax efficient. For example, people having lodgers, there are tax incentives to do that, and that's great for renters as well. You can get a room in a house. There are lots of big houses in London with empty rooms that aren't being used. Is that something that all of us should be considering, where everybody's a winner?
I'm not sure that counts as everyone being a winner, in the sense that, I think the vast majority of people would aspire to have private space of their own, and there's a certain stage in life where renting rooms is possibly the best solution, not just financially, but also socially. But I don't think we can look at long-term solutions that involve breaking up housing stock and turning people from tenants into lodgers. I think that structurally, the biggest challenge here, facing tenants, but also facing landlords, and there are real considerations that landlords are facing right now that make it very difficult to stay in the game, as Abdul says, is the structure of the market and the role that estate agencies and letting agencies play in the market. So if we're looking at why is it so hard to be a landlord, or why are rents so high, a big answer to that question is so much of the overall revenue that landlords are generating, the rents that tenants are paying, is ending up in the pockets of intermediaries within the market. And the market structure is so inefficient that your estate agency or letting agency is able to pocket a very large share of the overall revenue pool that exists there, which makes it harder for the landlord, but also means that rents are much higher than necessary for the tenant. So I think that the real solution here that can address the very, very serious concerns that tenants have today about their overall security in their property, by which I mean the visibility that they have on not being evicted, for example, at no fault of their own. And also the uncertainty around what kind of rental increase is coming around the corner is to really go into how do we reform the way in which rental properties are marketed and maintained, because that's a free win for everybody. That's a free lunch for landlords and tenants if we can make the market more efficient in the way that it operates.
Okay, more efficient, and essentially just build more houses. That would help a lot.
That's always going to happen.
And flats.
Well,
All
Rice, thank you very much indeed. Abdul Karim, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you. 7:33. Stay with us. We're discussing the ongoing battle between Prince Harry and Associated Newspapers as we head into the final day of legal proceedings.
Freddie Gray and Emma Burnell will have their say next in the papers.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island's story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, 7:37. Let's bring you up to date with the front pages of the newspapers this morning.
Here's the Telegraph, first of all. Households facing higher bills if they keep using gas. You bad people.
Apparently 100 quid or something, though.
Yeah.
The Express say plans to increase the UK retirement age to 68 will be postponed due to fears of a revolt.
Be like Paris. The Mail focuses on gender identity in schools as new report claims teachers are letting pupils change their names, change their uniforms, without telling their parents at all about what's going on.
And The Times features Germany's welcome to King Charles on his first state visit as he plans to strengthen ties with the country.
Joining us to go through the papers in more details, we welcome Freddie Gray and we also welcome Emma Burnell with those. Emma, Rishi Sunak faces a row over alleged conflict of interest. Tell us more. This is front page of the Eye.
Yeah, so there's a move to increase payments to these agency-registered childminders. And there's a pilot scheme which 6 businesses are on. And it turns out that one of those businesses, his wife is a shareholder in. We don't know quite how long she's been a shareholder, but she was first registered in March 2021 when he was already the Chancellor of the Exchequer. And she was still registered as recently as March this year. And she benefits from, there will be a financial benefit to this firm from the government's changes in the budget recently. And it seems that Sunak has not declared this in the Registry of Ministers' interests.
And do you have to, as a minister, declare your partners?
Yes,
you do.
You do.
Okay,
yeah.
Fine, understood. Well, then there's no comeback to that, really, is there?
I mean, I'm guessing.
Go on. Go ahead. Sorry.
They're under consideration as one of the partners for this government scheme, so they'll probably be discounted now. But I mean, it's obviously a conflict of interest. But if Sunak declared it, then it's not that big a story. I mean, Sunak's problem is he and his wife are so rich that there's almost no area of government policy where it's not going to benefit.
We just have to declare it. It's fine as long as everyone knows. But I mean.
Yeah, it's about being transparent, I think, and particularly given that he set himself up as Mr. Transparency, Mr. Honesty, integrity. He needs to be just absolutely clearer on everything than possibly even than the rules say, because I think that there is this sense that the rules have been bent so badly for so long. If he really is going to turn a page, he needs to go above and beyond the rules.
OK. Daily Mail, page 5. This is the Prince Harry and various other people's case against associated newspapers. What's the revelation, Freddie?
Well, this is rather a satisfying revelation for the Daily Mail in the Daily Mail about the Daily Mail.
Funny that.
And but it's about a key witness. Harry's and various other celebrities are launching this privacy suit against Associated Papers, Daily Mail, and seems it was largely based, not largely based, but a very important part of it was this witness, Gavin Burrows, who, as part of their complaint, had said that he'd hacked papers and done various illegal things to the Daily Mail. He has said that's not true. It's fake news. It's quite unclear sort of how he pivoted from one statement to the other, but he's saying it's not true, and so therefore a sort of key plank of Harry and the celebrities' case seems to be flawed. And so the Daily Mail is understandably jubilant about this.
Interesting. The plot thickens. I'm just looking at a picture of Prince Harry carrying a McDonald's bag next to a picture of Boris Johnson in a giant puffer jacket, next to a picture of Pope Francis in a giant puffer jacket, thinking, have we gone from the sublime to the ridiculous? But this is all deep fake.
It's all deep fake, yeah.
And, oh dear, it's scary. They've also got a picture of Pope Francis riding a bike. I mean, it all looks so plausible, that's the thing.
I've watched a couple of films recently, one of which I forget, but the one I was watching yesterday was called Rabbit Hole, Kiefer Sutherland, and any of us can be framed, moulded into anything. It's
and political unrest could be, quite easily stoked if you had a picture of somebody doing something. It is frightening, and this is all relating to the story, just to throw it in, sorry, seeing as I've gone off on a tangent, about Elon Musk calling on the world's tech leaders to halt work on AI. I do think if someone like Elon Musk, who's opposed any interference in Twitter, in Tesla, he's all about, the free market. If he's saying, let's press pause, then I'm thinking, what does he know?
Look, Elon Musk has messed up my favourite toy. I'm never off blooming Twitter. But it's got work, and I am now. I don't spend nearly as much time there as I did previously. Now, maybe that's good for me.
Probably a good thing.
So maybe Elon Musk is the world's greatest humanitarian. But I think that on this, he's not wrong to be nervous about it. We should all be much more... the problem with any of these things is once the genie's out the bottle, actually we have to deal with the genie, not the bottle. We can't go back to where we were. We need to think about, OK, well, this does exist in the world now, so how do we then manage that? How do we control it? Because it may well be we can all go, oh, let's pass our load of laws to stop X, Y and Z happening. But you're right. If someone wants to foment political insurrection, they're not going to be deterred by that, by the fact they might be fined 50 quid.
Yeah, 100%.
The thing that terrified me was that capture trick. That we talked about this last week, but there's a good piece about it in the Mail today that one of the AI bots got round the capture thing by tricking the computer and lying to a human.
Yeah.
Gosh.
That's quite...
Yeah, that's how it's all going to end up, and they know it.
Freddie, I like a wad of money.
Yes.
A wad?
I like to have a
Who doesn't?
Bunch of cash. Yes, I just feel naked without
I wouldn't know how that feels.
Why are you advertising?
In my pocket. So basically, the Express is talking here about the reluctance for some establishments to accept cash. Indeed, I've talked about this before the programme. The reluctance of young people to accept cash. My father used to say, are you okay for money? And he'd slip you 20 quid or whatever, right? When I do that to my kids, they go, Dad, no one uses cash. Just transfer it to my account.
I know, but it loses some of the magic doing that, doesn't it?
And this is the cashless society, which I think we should all resist, because the possibilities for tyranny in the cashless society are much greater. It's sort of an urban myth that people have to accept cash. They don't. Perhaps they should. Perhaps all companies should have to accept cash because increasingly it's harder to use.
Yeah.
I'm just quite lazy, so I like cash. I don't like cash because I hate having to walk to the cash machine and then it's run out and have to walk back to the cash machine.
But I don't know how this equates. It might equate to nail bars or whatever, but if I go into any Turkish barbers or any kebab shop...
No, my nail bar is card.
Well, I'm telling you, if you're a man and you try and get your hair cut in Turkish barbers, you suddenly get it done and then they go, I'm sorry, we only take cash. And you are completely stuck there. And try and get a kebab and pay with a card. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah. You can say, I've left my hair on the floor. You can keep that.
But I just can't be bothered with cash. It's not... No. It's not,
but it's not whether you can be bothered or not. It's they can be bothered.
I'd avoid the Turkish
I almost never use cash. I almost never carry cash. I pay for everything with my phone. It actually annoys me if I'm trying to buy something small and they have a limit
Yeah.
And you can't buy one packet of throat sweets or whatever. It is infuriating. I mean, I think, given that that infuriates me, what I have to do then is have empathy with the people who have the opposite problem and wish to use cash and find it really annoying that they have to use a card or technology. So surely there has to be a way that we can have the best of both worlds. But I think where the problem is particularly on smaller businesses, your Turkish barbers, your nail bars, your corner shop, it is... these are complicated systems, and banking is hard. Banking cash, in particular, that's
costly.
It's costly and difficult.
And this has been fueled by thieves on all sides. People who want to money launder cash, and the thieving inland revenue, who want every single penny that we all have to be accounted for. So they want it. So that's the way society's going.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think, cash is a great way of budgeting. He says as someone who doesn't budget. but it is. I mean, I think when I have been skinned, which has happened quite a lot, if you take out money at the beginning of the week and say, I'm only going to spend this, I now actually do that I have a separate card that I put a certain amount on every week.
And if you go over it...
As of last week, I've started to do it. It's not like a long-standing thing, but...
My bank app has spaces for things, so, all my bills come out of one space and the money has to go straight in there before it goes anywhere else.
Emma, let's talk. The Sun have a big report this week about the danger of cosmetic operations. Women in particular, although I'm sure it's not exclusive to women, seeking perfection.
It's not exclusive to women, but the number of operations that happened last year, 93% of them were women having sort of very basic cosmetic appearance changes. And it seems to be driven by the kind of very singular look that is popular on reality television, that sort of increased mouth, the big blown-up lips, fillers in your cheeks to make sure that you've got the real sort of definition there. Boob jobs is the obvious other one that, particularly if you're going onto a show in which you're spending 90% of your time in a bikini, it seems to be very popular. And the problem is that young girls are looking at this and thinking that's what a woman should look like. And, of course, it's so homogenous and boring, frankly.
Well, the truth is, women are looking at it, or girls are looking at it, thinking that's how they should look. But also, men are then, and boys are then being conditioned
that's what
to
a woman
think
should
that
look
that's
like.
attractive as well.
Absolutely.
And it all becomes sort of...
But Emma just used the word that I find I can appreciate beauty in all its forms and whatever. But how everyone looks the same...
I know.
...does nothing for me. And it is a particular look of I was a young man that I wouldn't necessarily be attracted to.
Well, and this is it. It does feel like we've really narrowed our concept of what beauty is and looks 100%. Like. And, of course, lots and lots of young women are going to go and have these procedures. And then, of course, fashion will move on and it'll go back to being you should be freckly with thin lips. And where are these girls going to be then?
Yeah, it's like a sunflower will never be a rose, and both of them are beautiful. And why can't people just recognise and appreciate all their differences?
Absolutely.
And I do think also, I mean, call me old-fashioned, but I do think you can have some of the most beautiful girls in the world with the most nasty characters and zero to say for themselves, and it just shines out of them like green light. So I think real beauty comes from within. But
and I think you can definitely you can see that. I mean, I'm addicted to these reality shows. I'm not going to be snobby about it, but you do, when you look at someone first, you think, oh, she's really pretty, and then she just turns out to be awful, and you're like, oh, every time I look at her, I like her look a little less, and vice versa.
That was like poetry.
What was it?
What is it? Dandelion will
Yeah,
never be a rose.
A sunflower will never
Let
be a
a thousand faces bloom.
Absolutely.
Guys, got to say goodbye to you because we're going to talk about bills and another consumer story, because this Saturday we'll see a number of your expenses going up.
Yeah, 1st of April, April Fool's Day, but it's no joke. We will see price increases for broadband, water, taxes and even NHS prescriptions.
So, can you beat that pinch? Consumer rights expert Martin James joins us now. Didn't even know, and they sneak it in on a Saturday, Martin, as well.
Yes, welcome to Awful April, as it's been christened this year. And, I don't want to depress anyone listening, but it pays to actually be aware of kind of some of the problems that we're going to be facing. So realistically, we're looking at increases in energy bills, and that's because that £400 government support network that we had beforehand actually has come to an end. That £67 payment that we've been getting every month means that even though the government's frozen its energy price guarantee, the fact of the matter is most of us will see an increase in bills. But we're looking at big increases in broadband, mobile phone costs, council tax, water bills. Some of these things we're stuck with and some of these things we're not, but we can find ways around them.
By negotiating, do you have to accept, Martin, what comes your way? So if they say that your broadband charges are going up, for instance, do you just say, okay, right, I'll accept that? Or can you haggle?
Well, some companies, are absolutely terrible at customer service, never mind kind of being negotiated with. But it does pay to kind of know a little bit about your rights with these things. With broadband and mobile phone increases, we're looking at an average of about 14% on each of those. That's 28% collectively increase if we're mid-contract. Now, the fact that these companies are allowed to do this is something that the regulator Ofcom is looking into, but that doesn't really help us right now. With two of the big ones, I think it's Sky and Virgin, they actually have clauses in the contract which says they have to notify you in advance. So if you're listening to this now, you will have a very tight window where you can phone up and complain. So you might possibly be able to get around it under those circumstances. But 20 million of us are actually out of contract with these deals, and we don't realise. And it's possible to actually move to another provider and halve your bills. I mean, I cut mine down from a ludicrous 90 odd quid to 40 quid just by moving to a different provider. So it's definitely worthwhile doing. If you want to get out of a contract midterm and you're stuck with it, negotiation probably isn't going to help too much. But remember, we all moan about terrible broadband service, for example. So if your service is rubbish, that firm is in breach of contract. So turn detective, record your speeds, use some of the free apps to actually record what you're getting and make a complaint. Under those circumstances, you could potentially get out of the contract without paying a hefty exit fee. So even if negotiation doesn't work, if the company's not meeting its part of the deal, you might be able to get away.
So that's some of the commercial hikes, but we're also seeing some of the things, as you say, like council tax going up. And I suppose people forget, actually, we've got local elections coming up. People can vote with their feet on this. I think Labour, for example, today, they're going to be announcing a freeze on council tax if they get in.
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing worse. Council tax and water bills, we're pretty much stuck with them. There are a few little things that you can do. So it seems startlingly obvious, but most of us are paying our council tax in chunks of 10 over the year. You can actually ask your local council to divide that up into 12 instead. And even though it's not a massive reduction, it is something that you wouldn't have got otherwise. If you go onto the government website as well under council tax, there's actually a startling array of discounts, not just the single person one that most of us know about. There are a range of discounts depending on your profession, if you're a carer, lots of other things. It doesn't have to be about being in receipt of benefits. So have a look on the council to see if you qualify. And there are even kind of the possibility of getting rebates if your property has been put into the wrong band. It's ludicrously complicated, but you can actually just apply to your council website if you think that you're in the wrong band. Now, with water companies, there is the big question about whether to go onto a water meter. So if you're single or it's just you and your partner and you live in a smaller property, it might actually be beneficial to do that. Of course, if you're a bigger family, you live in a bigger property, it makes sense to go with the estimated one. But you can still get that bill down that way.
Martin, great advice. Thank you for making us aware of all that's going to go on. Practically everything's going to go up from Saturday. National Price Hike Day, April the 1st, and it's no joke. Stay with us. We'll have more on the government's plan to penalise gas users. That's going up as well. But first, Alex Deakin has your Thursday forecast.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin, and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office. A bit brighter out there for most of us today, better chance of seeing some blue sky. There will still be some heavy showers, and it's pretty blustery once more. Going to get very windy tonight, thanks to this little area of low pressure. Still a long way away at the moment, but it is heading towards the south. Ahead of that, though, today we've got a few weather fronts, and they'll all be providing bands of showers moving in. But as I said,
Not as much cloud around, so a better chance of seeing some sunshine. Some of us waking up to blue skies, some showery rain clearing away from northeastern parts of England and southeast Scotland. And then we'll watch the shower clouds develop through the day. Could be some pretty lively ones, especially this afternoon. Chance of hail and thunder over parts of central and eastern England, central and southern Scotland. Nowhere completely immune from the showers, but turning a bit drier perhaps in Wales and southwest England. And as I say, a better chance of seeing some sunshine. And in that sunshine, really quite mild. Could see highs of 17 Celsius, but it is quite breezy. The winds, though, are going to strengthen further as that area of low pressure we saw earlier moves in, swamping the south with rain through this evening and overnight, and very blustery conditions. South Wales and southern England. We have a Met Office yellow weather warning in place. These winds picking up through this evening and staying pretty strong into Friday morning. All adds up to a pretty mild night across the south. Clearer skies across Scotland will allow it to turn a little chilly here, but we should see some brighter spells in Scotland, particularly in the west on Friday. Some good spells of sunshine, but wet and windy in the south. Yellow Met Office warnings still in place until midday on Friday across the south. Those winds could cause some problems, some structural damage perhaps, and certainly some pretty difficult driving conditions. A lot of spray and surface water on the roads on Friday across the south as well, with further spells of heavy rain. Still quite mild, but not feeling as mild with the wet and windy weather moving in.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like.
Absolutely.
On Jubes & Co. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Households will be penalised for using gas as the government launches a major new energy security plan.
Good morning. It is bang on 8 o'clock this morning. It's Thursday, the 30th of March. Thank you for tuning in this morning. You're watching Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
With you until 9:30 and leading the news this morning. People using gas instead of electricity in their homes could see their bills go up by £100 a year. This is part of the government's new energy security strategy. Dubbed Powering Up Britain, it will also include an expansion of offshore wind and an insulation drive for 300,000 homes. The Energy Secretary Grant Shapps told us about his carbon recapture plans.
Probably have the ability to store billions, if not trillions of pounds worth of other people's carbon in those locations. So you say it's going to cost us. Actually, it could be a massive market, effectively an export, if you like, for Britain.
But it comes as the Chancellor has accused President Biden of protectionism over his plan to offer green tax breaks to American car manufacturers. Jeremy Hunt's concerned the levies could wipe out the UK's £4.3 billion car export market to the US.
The King has pledged to strengthen ties with Germany on day one of his first state visit as monarch. Speaking at a banquet in Berlin alongside the German president, he said the relationship between the two countries had mattered greatly to his mother.
The new leader of Scotland, Humza Yousaf, will face his first FMQs today. It comes after he selected his top team with the cabinet for the first time made up of a majority of women.
Charles Bronson has claimed that he is a model prisoner ahead of a parole decision on whether to free him today. Dubbed Britain's most notorious inmate, he has spent almost 50 years behind bars after being originally jailed for armed robbery. Now, the German president. That's different than the German chancellor, isn't it?
Don't ask me. I knew you were going to do this. I actually had the exact same thoughts yesterday.
I was going to say,
I'd never actually
no one has a
heard
clue.
an awful lot about him.
No one has a clue who either the German president or the German chancellor is.
All I know is that the chancellor is the chap who would turn up at the G7 and all the big political meetings.
Yeah. He's like the prime minister.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other's the state, the head of state.
Yeah, he's a sort of more of a figurehead.
Yeah.
Somebody tell us.
But I'm sure they're very nice
Maybe Olivia
people.
Utley will know more. I'm sure
This
they're
will
very
do
nice.
Germany a lot of good because by the end of today, I'm sure his name will be mentioned so much that even us, even we will know.
I want you to pronounce it and say it. Come on.
Yes.
Here we go. We've
Where?
got, it's in the top here. Oh, let's find it. Bear with us, people. Oh, there you go.
Hosted by Frank Walter Steinmeister.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, did you do German at school?
No.
Oh, well, you
But I used
faked
to read
it.
a lot of comics. I mean, I had the Victor and those commando comics and things, and they would say, surrender, Englander. They would do that. They would have these guns.
There we go.
That's true. And they would say achung quite a lot. Achung, which I think
Action?
means... No, I think it means attention.
Oh, right,
I think
okay.
like it means sort of like warning or
Not
something.
exit or something. Out.
No, it means I'm going to shoot you.
Oh, right, okay.
Achung. Sort
right.
of thing.
Okay. Well, from that, we're going to segue
Did anybody else
neatly.
read those commando comics? They don't have them anymore. Little books. They used to be great. And then the Victor was the comic I used to get every week, and they always used to be war stories. And
No, can't
tales
claim
of
to have read
daring do.
No.
But you know, it is amazing when you think there that King Charles and the Queen, they're in Germany. What are we, 60 years after the war? No, wait a minute. No, you don't know. It's 80 years after the war.
Don't ask me.
No idea.
75, something like that.
Could be. Well, settle on 75.
I don't know.
But, you know, But it's incredible that who would have thought at the Brandenburg Gate, and there they are, symbolic and shaking hands and doing all this.
Yeah, no, obviously. But, you know, and also, as we touched on yesterday, the Second World War was hugely problematic for the royal family because of their not only German family, but also, you know, the Duke of Edinburgh, his sisters were married to senior Nazis.
And the traitor, the one that looked like Harry, what's his name?
Oh, no, don't ask me. What are you doing to me?
Edward and Wallace Simpson.
Right, yes.
I mean, he loved Hitler. Him and Hitler.
No, but lots of them did. Diana Mitford, she was in with that crowd. And, it was, you know, she was obviously related to Churchill. So there was that whole circle that had connections with the Nazis, but it wasn't immediately apparent that they were going to be, you know, committing huge, horrendous crimes like they did. But anyway, we digress. And we will be talking more about the royals later on in the hour.
You don't like digressing, do you?
I don't mind digressing, but, you know, 5 minutes past, we could move on to Green Day, as it's being dubbed, a really big announcement coming from the government. Actually been really heavily trailed. It's made the front of most of the newspapers this morning. And it's all about households now using gas instead of electricity, although this could see bills increase by reportedly £100 as part of new energy security announcements today.
So we had the Energy Secretary, Grat Shapps, on the programme earlier, and during a visit to a nuclear fusion development facility, whatever that is, but it's very important, and it doesn't mean gas or carbon fuels or whatever. It is something different. So he told us that carbon capture will be a crucial aspect of this strategy.
Cost and potentially a huge market. So this is something I wouldn't expect most of your viewers to know about, but there's something called carbon capture, utilisation and storage. It's a method of capturing carbon and then storing it largely under the sea, actually in the old oil and gas locations. And if we probably have the ability to store billions, if not trillions of pounds worth of other people's carbon in those locations. So you say it's going to cost us. Actually, it could be a massive market, effectively an export, like, for Britain, as big as, even bigger than oil and gas has been for us.
Forgive me, there were two key words used there, probably and could be, which suggests that this is a bit of a gamble. And indeed, a lot of experts are warning that this isn't even proven technology that you are backing here, and it might not work out.
So we're putting £20 billion into that. Today I'm announcing the locations where those programmes are going to get going. But we know that you can actually do this. It's technically possible to do. Yes, there are lots of practical implications of doing it, but it could be a market worth trillions of pounds. To put this into perspective, we've got space to store about 78 billion tonnes of carbon, and that would be enough for the whole of Europe's carbon for 250 years. That could bring in a lot of money to the UK.
You see, I feel like we might need a translator for a lot of this. Let's get political reporter Olivia.
He does a lot of talking, but he never really answers questions. But Olivia, basically, they're going to hammer us. You know, this gas boiler business. People don't go and say, "I'm choosing a gas boiler." They buy a house and it's there. It's there for them.
Absolutely, and the drive towards heat pumps isn't working as well as the government hoped for all sorts of reasons. People don't.
They're rubbish, apparently.
They're very noisy. Certainly, we've got one down the road from us and it's deafening. But also people don't quite understand how they work. They don't understand that they're on all the time. The heat pump installers have had to add a switch that people can switch, which does nothing, but just because people don't understand the way they work, that they're actually supposed to be on all the time. So this measure is intended in the government's new green strategy. This measure is intended to switch the subsidy, essentially, from gas to electricity, to persuade people to go over to electric ways of heating their homes.
So my electricity could be generated by nuclear, say, for instance?
Yes, so electricity will get cheaper under the new measures being proposed today, but gas will get more expensive. And obviously, more people in the UK are using more gas, and the drive to heat pumps isn't yet gaining the sort of traction we're expecting.
If only the Energy Minister had have said that to us this morning. No, but it's true.
Yes, well, that's why I hired Olivia, because she can translate it for us.
That is beautiful. Do you ever think of going into government? That would be... You see, why they just don't tell you the truth and say, look, the sad fact is if you have gas, it's going to get more expensive. That's a vote loser, I would assume.
I think, yes, it probably is a vote loser. Grant Shapps is actually moving a little bit slower than his predecessors on the net zero front. So the measures being announced today, generally the whole package of measures, is less dramatic than Labour was hoping for, than many Green campaigners were hoping for. So his focus is very much on sort of keeping the lights on, because that has actually been the worry in recent months, that we could genuinely be in a situation where the push towards net zero goes so quickly that it's impossible to be generating enough energy for the UK to get by. So Conservative backbenchers are quite relieved, actually, that some of the measures being proposed by Shapps today are slightly watered down or are essentially measures that he has already proposed, rather than brand new ideas, which obviously run the risk of moving too fast and getting us into a energy crisis.
Although lots of scepticism about whether or not this carbon capture thing will work, which she obviously addressed in that clip. But I just want to pick up on some of the things you said there. I mean, there's just not consensus on a lot of the stuff that's been suggested today. The climate think tank E3G, they were disappointed that the budget didn't see any public investment or tax breaks for the green industry. We've had Alok Sharma coming out, of course, who oversaw, I think it was COP26, and he came out saying there wasn't a bazooka moment, and Labour saying it's not gone far enough, it needed to be more like the Americans' Inflation Reduction Act, which is giving these huge subsidies to green innovation, particularly in relation to cars.
Yes, and Jeremy Hunt, interestingly, has hit back very hard against Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, which essentially, yes, involves huge subsidies for green energy. And his argument is that we are going to do things the British way, and essentially, instead of just pumping money into the pockets of green energy companies, taxpayers' money into the pockets of green energy companies directly, he says we're going to remove all sorts of regulation and make it an easy decision for investors to invest in green energy. So today, for example, they're massively loosening the regulation around offshore wind turbines. That said, there isn't any movement at all on onshore wind turbines. There's currently a ban on them, and that ban seems to be staying. But essentially, Jeremy Hunt is saying this is the free market approach to green energy. And it's quite interesting because it's a bit of a divergence from what Rishi Sunak has been saying. Jeremy Hunt is certainly the more free market of the two, and we saw that with the budget. Rishi Sunak has not gone as far as to criticise the Inflation Reduction Act in the US. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Also because President Biden's popping over next week, isn't he? And Rishi Sunak's been walking on eggshells, really, with his Windsor framework, not wanting to criticise the Biden administration because, well, it's his baby.
Exactly. So I'm not sure if Rishi Sunak would appreciate Jeremy Hunt's piece in the Times lambasting Joe Biden's approach to energy. We'll see how that visit works.
Indeed. All right, Olivia. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to go to the High Court in central London now, day 4 of the hearing between Prince Harry and associated newspapers. Final decision is going to be made on whether that case will actually go on trial. Let's go to Ellie Costello as to what we can expect today. Good morning, Ellie.
Well, good morning to you both. Yes, final day of the hearing today, but there was no Prince Harry yesterday, the first day that he hasn't been sat in the courtroom. And the focus yesterday was very much on the barristers for associated newspapers. They were trying to throw out what they think will be a key piece of evidence, which is a witness statement from a private investigator called Gavin Burrows. And in that statement, he says he targeted hundreds, possibly thousands of people working for journalists at the Mail on Sunday in the early 2000s. He says there pretty much wasn't a week that went by when he didn't have a hardwire tap on somebody. He writes that Prince Harry, Liz Hurley, Sadie Frost, Sir Elton John and his husband David Furnish were just a small handful of his alleged targets. Well, it's very important to say at this point that associated newspapers, they vehemently deny any of these allegations against them. And the barrister for associated newspapers yesterday pointed to a new statement from Gavin Burrows. That first statement I just shared with you was shared in 2021, and he signed a second statement just this month. And in that statement, he denies any illegal information gathering for the Mail papers. So the barrister yesterday was saying all of that evidence needs to be dismissed. But the judge said something very interesting at that point, and he said, well, that is a trial point if ever there was one. And that is what this whole week has been about. That is what this hearing has been about. Is there enough evidence for this case to go to a full trial, or is there not enough evidence, or is the evidence too weak that this case needs to be thrown out or decided upon without a trial? That is what the judge has got to decide after the final day of hearings today. And we're expecting a ruling on that at a later date.
Good stuff, Ellie. Thank you.
Thank you. Coming up to 8:15, let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories.
Plans to increase the state pension to 68 have been delayed, according to reports in the Daily Express and the I newspapers. The age is due to rise in 2044, but it's been reported that ministers were planning to bring that forward to 2035.
A quarter of private renters in England haven't asked their landlord for repairs over fear of eviction. The YouGov poll found the number of renters who have complained in the last 3 years and been evicted or threatened with eviction is nearly 3 times that of those who hadn't registered complaints.
The Vatican says Pope Francis has a respiratory infection and will need to spend a few days in hospital for treatment. It's understood the 86-year-old had complained of breathing difficulties in recent days.
The King has pledged to strengthen connections between Britain and Germany in his first state banquet speech.
His Majesty and the Queen Consort have a packed diary during their 3-day state visit to Berlin and Hamburg. And our royal reporter, Cameron Walker, is travelling with them and has looked back on their first day.
A state visit at the start of a new reign. For the first time, a ceremonial welcome awaited the King and Queen Consort in the shadow of the iconic Brandenburg Gate. Once a symbol of division, now one of unity. That's the purpose of this trip. Buckingham Palace calls it a celebration of shared histories, culture and values. And British officials are aiming to strengthen friendly ties to Germany in a post-Brexit world. And German royal fans seem to agree.
I think he can help healing the wounds that Brexit has caused.
To promote the British culture, the British economic, and it's, I'm very jealous that I don't have that.
Their Majesty's global fame drew crowds of well-wishers to central Berlin, and they made a point of personally meeting local school groups and royal fans who waited hours to catch a glimpse of them. Cardboard crowns were also on display, perhaps a nod to Charles wearing the real thing in less than 6 weeks' time. No other head of state has ever been offered such a welcome at Brandenburg Gate. So is this a big boost for Britain? The UK government will hope the monarchy's power of soft diplomacy will propel British interests on a global stage. A platform Charles used at a magnificent state banquet hosted by the German president in his honour.
Our countries are working together to promote global health, to help developing countries overcome their challenges and prosper, and to advance the urgent and vital journey towards net zero. We stand together with Ukraine in defence of freedom and sovereignty in the face of unprovoked aggression.
At the banquet, the King spoke of the warmth and friendship between our two nations. He also praised Germany for taking in more than 1 million Ukrainian refugees. He is expected to address the German Parliament, becoming the first British monarch to do so. Cameron Walker, GB News, Berlin.
May I just say,
yes,
that huge canvas, beautiful, beautiful painting behind them just then was stunning. It was just blank, but, well, not blank.
I like a big canvas.
It was just a big statement piece.
Very nice.
Modern, in a really traditional kind of palatial setting. I really liked
them,
it.
usually with my face on them.
Oh, yeah, you've got a lot of those, haven't you?
I can't help it if people want to paint
Three or four of those, I believe.
Amanda Punter. I wonder if that's your real name, Amanda. Amanda says, Eamonn and Isabel, I have to tweet how much I love you and watching GB News in the morning with you two. Whilst you are empathetic where needed, you also have fun and look like you actually enjoy your jobs rather than some who always look so bloomin' miserable on other channels. Well, thank you, Amanda.
True. We love our job. We have a lot of fun doing it, and we're sometimes a bit silly.
We so love our job.
Mainly because of you.
What? It's because you come in the morning, you say stupid things, like, I love my job. Who loves their job?
What was it you said to me this morning? I said, am I being too enthusiastic and shrieky before we came on air at 6 o'clock? And you said, it's not different from any other day.
That's very true.
It's very true.
Because you addict yourself on caffeine. and you become...
I'm just a bubbly person. I can't help it. I'm excited to come in, get on air, and you're there all grumpy. And then I tickle you, don't I, during the introduction to try and wake you up.
Which I may go to Human Resources about in the form of sexual
I've got Ruth's
harassment.
blessing. It's fine. She's OK with it.
We will be discussing Tottenham's director of football. He's been told he's got to sling his hook.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, there's a 30-month worldwide ban from football for him.
Oh, well, it'll be paid off.
Well. Paul Coit, all the details next.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories, controversies and issues.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
It's 5 times the opinion, 5 times the debate, and 5 times the fun. The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You could wink at the end. I can't Britain's
wink.
listening.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
You had your tweet. I've got Diana Edwards on here. I just love the pair of you together. Loads of people also had the same comics as you.
Handy Hock?
I thought it was Commando.
No, that's an instruction in German. That's my German.
Oh, I don't know.
Which means
and
Handy
lots of people
Hock.
talking about Achtung as well, but it's...
Achtung, Handy Hock, Englander.
God.
That means put your hands up.
Okay.
That's it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought everybody knew that.
Apparently
I
not.
learned that from Commando. magazines. Other people watch?
Yeah, loads. Literally loads of people saying, oh, my mum threw them all out. It could have been worth a fortune.
Yes, worth a fortune.
Yeah.
You're quite right.
Yeah, tons.
See, that's the difference between men and women. Women look at stuff like that and they think junk.
Yes.
They think junk.
Yes.
My wife looks at all my memorabilia, whether it's toys, whether it's...
All my memorabilia. Toys. You're a grown man.
Toys bring me back to a happy place.
Wow.
Yeah.
That says it all.
Andy Hock, Englander. Remember that. Still to come on the programme today, Charles Bronson, the prisoner, preparing to hear if his request for parole has been granted.
We'll ask his ex-wife if she thinks he should be freed and what's the first thing he's likely to do if he is released.
9:15, The Crown recreates the romance between William and Kate when they were at university in St Andrews.
I can't deny it. It's my guilty pleasure. This is just so exciting.
Yeah, so they're going to make this into whatever it is, an episode of The Crown.
Yeah, they're going behind the scenes.
Maybe it's his own series. Maybe it's a spin-off thing as well.
No, it's not. It's a special one. Anyway, they've got these lookalikes, haven't they? When William, let's be honest, he was in his prime at St Andrews. I mean, just drop dead gorgeous. Long, glossy blonde locks, big, broad shoulders, strapping lad.
And she would go around in her underwear.
Well, exactly.
Which
It was
made
meant
her
to
very
be.
attractive.
Anyway, mustn't speak like that. It's the future king. Off with his head.
Yeah, well, there we go. Anyway, she got her man. It worked well. And if you were there, and you saw them and you were witness to history, let us know this morning. It's Paul Coity time, and before we get to the man himself, we go to the back pages.
Looking very dapper, by the way.
Thank you very much.
I have to comment on it because you've really pulled out all the
Thank you,
stops
Isabel.
today.
I appreciate it.
Very smart.
Good. It's nice to meet you.
Don't look so bad yourself, Isabel, by the way.
In the Mail, Tottenham have found themselves in another crisis. Its director of football was handed a worldwide ban from the sport from when he used to work at Juventus. So we'll talk about that shortly. The Express, big transfer news on Marcus Rashford. He's reportedly asking the club for £500,000 a week. So that's what, 2 million a month by 12, 24 million a year, okay? And we go to the Star and they say talks with Marcus are being kept on hold while the owners, the Glazers, eagerly await the sale of United. What are we hearing about that, Paul?
We're hearing that Marcus Rashford probably doesn't want as much as £500,000 a week.
499?
Probably about 498.
Yeah.
Probably settle on 498 with agents' fees.
Right.
He's on 250,000 at the moment that he signed in 2019. So he's got about, I think it's 15 months left of his contract. And the way he's been playing, it's probably, if not one of, certainly most important player that Manchester United have at the moment.
Absolutely.
It's been amazing.
Yeah.
And when you've got people like David De Gea that are on 350 grand a week, what's Marcus Rashford worth? You know, to all the rest of us, you think, well, $500,000 a week? But, you know, that's market value. So he probably is going to end up around there. I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Right. Now, at your club, you've got, so you're, what is he?
He is the managing director of football.
Right, OK.
Fabio Paratici.
OK.
Now, Fabio Paratici, he is the man that's running, obviously, the title sums it up, managing director of football, running the whole football side, and was involved in Juventus. So he came over to Tottenham, and it was thought that he was going to come along with Antonio Conte.
He's a jolly-looking guy, isn't he?
He is, yeah. Well, he's listening. He's talking to someone on the phone. He's probably doing deals there on the phone. There he is with Antonio Conte. So when he came over to Spurs, it looked like he was going to bring Conte with him. Conte didn't come, so he came in, and then Antonio Conte came later. Now, there's been problems at Juventus, and this is financial irregularities. I could go into the whole thing, but it would take forever and a day. So there were 11 directors of Juventus who ended up resigning through this, and he ended up being given a ban, along with the others, which was a 3-year ban away from Italian football. So he can't be involved in Italian football at all. So coming over to work for Spurs doesn't affect the ban, obviously, but then FIFA have now got involved and completely out of the blue. I mean, there was going to be a hearing as well, whether it would be extended, and this would be at the end of April. But FIFA announced yesterday that his ban is now worldwide. Now, he's the man who's not only in charge of transfers, he's also going to be very high up and in charge of getting a new manager in. So he's very important to the club. And now the club are in a situation thinking, if we lose him, where do we go? We've got Harry Kane, we've got to try and sort out a deal with him, we've got to find a new manager. So it is a very grey area and very uncomfortable at Spurs at the moment for how his future's going to be.
Talking about losing people, OK, UK Athletics, they have this altitude training camp.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Right, and this is in, where, South Africa?
South Africa, yeah.
So there's two people, Adam Peaty, and who else was it?
Well, Adam Peaty, this is a separate one, but
oh no, sorry, it's my high school.
This is
Laura Muir and Gemma Reekie.
Gemma Reekie.
Right,
now Laura Muir. I mean, Gemma's a fantastic athlete. Laura, though, silver medalist for the Olympics, fantastic middle distance runner, and she's been with Andy Young. Now, Andy Young has been her coach and Gemma's coach for a number of years. We're probably looking back about 11 or 12 years.
But they had a ding-dong.
Well, it seems like it. You know, nobody really knows exactly what happened, but they end up flying back because they all go for summer, for warm weather training at this time of year. So she's been with him for a long time. Young denies that there was an argument. This is the coach. They've flown back. They're now being looked after by UK Athletics. When I say looked after, being coached. He said they felt that I wasn't looking after myself properly, maybe thought that the pressure was getting to me. Now, what that means, I really don't know. But it is a very strange situation. It's almost like there's going to be more that is going to come from this story. But at the moment, a top coach and also some great athletes, so they've gone their separate ways.
Yeah, and so obviously who knows what that means for them. And what does this mean for Adam Peaty, Eamonn mentioning a minute ago, triple Olympic gold medalist?
Yep.
He's having mental health problems.
14-time world record holder, and out of every sports person I've met, whether they're actually in the sport or veterans, this is the most driven sports person I've ever met. I've worked with him quite a few times. And he's just incredible, and he's so focused. So he's admitted that he's been having health problems, or been having mental health problems. So he's pulling out of the British Championship. Now, if you can imagine what it's like to be someone like him, he's the best in the world by a long way and has been for a long time. But the popularity of swimming is certainly not going to be the popularity of some other sports. So it's very difficult to be, I imagine, to be him, to be so successful, but the only time that everybody is looking at him and lauding him is when he's in the Olympic Games, which happens obviously every 4 years. So I don't know whether that's got anything to do with it. He's written on Instagram, he said that everybody wants to sit in your seat until they sit in your seat, and very few people understand winning and success due to an individual's mental health, because basically he's there to be shot down the whole time.
And also, you know, swimming, it's a solo sport, isn't it?
Yep.
And it's monotonous. I mean, I only did it at school, but I remember competing, and just the warm-up would be 8 lengths of the Olympic-sized pool.
Yep.
You're on your own in the water with your thoughts, and these kids are grown up, these professionals getting up at the crack of dawn, 4 in the morning, doing their training. I can imagine that you just reached a point where you've had enough. I mean, tennis, you can see you're outside having a lovely time in the sunshine, but something about swimming, I think it's a very mental sport.
I think you're absolutely right, because I remember speaking to him and he said, well, what do you do? I mean, it sounds like a crazy question, but what do you sing in your head as you're swimming?
I think focus
yes,
on
I do.
breathing and all of that.
And the other things that they do is that to try and recreate an Olympic situation is that he would put headphones on, have the sound of crowds.
Makes you more
closes
Oh,
on.
right.
Yes. It's like we do with you, know, before you come on the air. It's a similar sort of thing.
You know, you're saying people sit in a seat.
Yeah.
People sit in a seat. Just be quiet and move in your seat and let people listen.
That is, you know what, usually when that happens, it won't creak. But I don't know whether it's
we need
me
a WD-40.
or whether it is the chair.
No,
You'll soon
it's
see.
chair.
Are you sure?
It's very irritating. It's not that I find you...
It's not
that I find you irritating.
Yeah, but
you
my
sitting in
chair
that
is bugging
seat
the hell out of you.
Very irritating.
OK, right.
Very, very irritating.
I can't keep still, though, Eamonn.
I can't. I wriggle all morning.
We just bought a proper seat. It might help.
Oh, yeah, that would be nice. Yeah.
Lionel Messi. So tell us about this. Such is the demand and the popularity of this guy.
Yes.
When he plays against other teams, what happens?
Well, everybody wants his shirt, don't they?
Yeah.
I'm trying my best to keep really still now as I'm talking to you. They played Curacao during the week, and they won 7-0.
Right.
Now, you'd think that you'd be pretty upset if you lost 7-0 to Argentina. It's a pretty embarrassing. You're representing your country. But Eloy Roombe is the name of the goalkeeper for Curacao, and he is so happy. OK, he's let in 7 goals. Lionel Messi scored 3, but he's got Messi's shirt. So he even posted it. There we are. That's the what he put on Instagram, and he's put dreams do come true. So this is for a professional goalkeeper saying dreams do come true. I've just conceded 7, but look what I've got. Lionel Messi's shirt.
Lionel Messi's shirt. Good, that'll be on eBay. That'll be it. Good. Thank you very much
Thanks,
indeed.
Paul.
It's a pleasure.
Please just get away from that.
I'll go and buy some oil
shirt.
for it. I'll just fix it for you. It's okay.
You've started something, Eamonn, with reading out that tweet.
Mm-hmm.
Eamonn and Isabel, I can only agree with your other viewer. What a great team. And that's from Les in Kent. Chris Stevens says, morning, team. I just want to say I'm new to GB News. Absolutely loving it, especially Eamonn and Isabel. Keep up the fantastic
Who is that
work.
person?
This is Tracy Stevens.
Tracy.
She also says she likes my blouse and she's going back to work as a returning mum and wants some tips. And I'll take that as a compliment as well.
Yeah, well, Tracy...
Compliments welcome, GB News.
Go and spread the word. Matter of fact, sorry, do you mind, Isabel, if I ask people, if I talk about your pink pants?
My pink trousers?
Yes.
Well, I did it to match your, I don't know if you can see.
But it's really...
Pink trousers on. It looks like a skirt, probably.
No, but it's very elegant.
There we go.
Very, very
matches
classy.
your tie and indeed your lapel embroidery.
And it matches my pants as well. So everything just ties in.
Next ad break, we'll get you to do it well.
Yeah.
Watching an episode of Heart to Heart.
Don't know what's going on.
Mrs. H, she's gorgeous.
By the way, my name's Max. There you go.
Yeah, and the dog was called...
Freeway.
It was.
Freeway the dog.
I always wanted a Merc 320 SL, a red one with a black roof like theirs.
Yeah, nice. And Robert Wagner, you know, he celebrated his 93rd birthday the other day.
Well, you know...
93.
I still follow Robert Wagner on Instagram.
Yeah.
He's still a very, very handsome man, full head of hair.
I know, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, very handsome man. But I used to think I could be Robert Wagner. Now they'd only cast me as Max.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think you're more of a Wagner than a Max.
You lost me at...
Lionel Stadler.
As you say.
Right, we've got to go.
And Stephanie Powers. You know, I met Stephanie Powers at a funeral one day, and I walked up to say hello to her, and she said, "Why, Eamonn, how are you?" And I said, "You know who I am?" She said, "Of course I know who you are." I said, bet you should never say that to you.
Of course you wouldn't.
No,
I mean, the number of times that's happened, we could tell the Catherine Zeta-Jones story.
Please don't.
But, you know, we haven't got time. So we'll be back. After this, we'll be discussing why supermarket bread could contain as much salt as a packet of crisps. More cheerful news. Freddie Gray and Emma Burnell will have their say. Oh, look at that. Looks delicious.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island's story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, look, this morning, as you are probably putting bread into the toaster or having something before you go, think on this, that tests on bread maintain that there is more salt in 3 slices of bread than in a packet of ready salted crisps. Emma, tell us more.
Yeah, it seems that a group called Action on Salt have done some testing on various things. They're a group of consultant cardiologists, I think, largely based at Queen Mary University. And they're looking at the hidden salt in all of our food, the salt that we don't expect to be there. So if you were looking after your blood pressure, deciding to cut down on salt, there are obvious things you'd choose not to do. You just wouldn't add as much salt when you're cooking, and you wouldn't buy things like crisps. But we just don't think of bread as a high-salt food. But apparently most of that, what's termed supermarket bread, so sliced bread that we buy, any of those sort of standard brands, has very high salt content. So 3 slices of bread is has the same salt as a packet of crisps. That's 1/3, I think, of your recommended daily allowance, which is really quite a lot of salt.
And I think, we know that something like white bread, if it doesn't go off by the end of the day, it's full of all sorts of other things as well. Add in the salt and, essentially we shouldn't really be eating this stuff.
Well, my takeaway from this is that you should have crisps for breakfast.
Where does that leave you with a crisp sandwich then? You see,
I love the crisp sandwich. Crisps
with
are my
salted butter.
great weakness.
Yeah, mine too.
I absolutely love them.
Same.
Did you say you don't have a crisp sandwich?
No, they love
you do. Yeah.
No,
so what does that do to our salt intake then? You see, that's massive.
With white bread, that would be real.
That's massive.
And with salted butter, because you need salted butter in a crisp sandwich, obviously.
You do. Yeah.
We should be eating better bread.
Yes.
So many other countries. To be fair, if you go to America, we have much better bread than they have. But what my family calls squeaky bread, any bread that lasts more than 2 days, slightly squeaks when you bite into it, that is not bread that is going to have the great benefits that other types of bread have for you.
So that's bad bread. Squeaky bread's bad bread.
Yeah, it's essentially any kind of white sliced is what's termed squeaky bread.
Well, you can get white sliced from a butcher, from a baker on the day, and it will go off by the end of the day.
But it will go off by the end of the day, and I think this is part of the problem. But people should remember, you can freeze bread. If, as I have to, you are limiting the amount of bread that you're able to have, putting bread in the freezer is fine, and you can just take it out as and when, maybe not as and when you need it, but if you're able to plan ahead, take the 2 slices out that you want for your breakfast in the morning, and then you can get some really nice, good quality bread and make sure that
Making
you're
me
getting
hungry.
Emma will
Starving.
be our food correspondent.
Absolutely.
Next time we're back to her, she's going to be talking about pork, right? But Freddie, Amsterdam, a holiday destination, a weekend destination for many Brits, not all of them welcome.
Yes, well, Amsterdam has launched a campaign, an advertising campaign, telling Brits to stay away if they want to come for a boozy, drug-fuelled weekend. I think it's a bit rich of Amsterdam to say. The advert says, coming for drugs, stay away. But, you know, cannabis is legal in Amsterdam. That's why people go there. I mean, there clearly is a culture in Britain of going to Amsterdam for amazingly epic binges. I went to a stag do once in Amsterdam. It was vile.
Is that not what it exists for, by and large, for that market?
Well, I mean, it's a great city in many other ways, but it's. I mean, they've made a lot of money out of Brits over the years. So,
are they saying this to other nationalities?
No, they're specifically
Just the
targeting
Brits?
18 to 35-year-old Brits. Yeah. Because
Well, you know,
we are pretty badly behaved.
We can add Amsterdam to a list now. Was it Tenerife the other week, or Lanzarote, or one of the Canary Islands?
Yesterday we were talking about British towns, York and whatever,
Yes.
end parties and stag parties.
Well, they are a scourge, as you...
It might be quite clever marketing, because knowing the British mindset, as soon as they're told not to go, they'll book their flights.
As someone who spent a lot of time in Amsterdam, we always thought that the red light district was superb because it just attracted all of the stag do's, all the Brits abroad into these narrow 2-3 streets, and then the whole of the rest of Amsterdam was untouched by the kind of stag party thing. So all the Dutch people loved it because you didn't actually have to come into contact with all of this. It was all kind of concentrated in one area.
I very nearly got run over by a tram in Amsterdam.
Yeah, that's a very...
Might have been something to do with the stag do, I don't know.
Right, Emma, on to pork.
Yeah, there's a report in Farmers Weekly, which is the trade magazine, saying that there is a company which is currently unnamed but is now being investigated by the Food Standards Agency that has been found to be putting a non-British pork, which means that it hasn't been reared to British standards, but also, even more worryingly, pork that has clearly gone off. They are salt washing it and mixing it in with fresh pork and putting it into British supermarket products. So this is a really worrying...
And this is coming from a major supermarket, is it?
This is coming from a supplier to many major supermarkets. It's as yet an unnamed supplier. But there is
they had that investigation, on horse meat.
Yeah, absolutely.
About this.
And it feels like every 5 years or so, something happens in the meat supply chain and we find some new awful thing that's being done. But there is a real, bangers and mash. Your British banger, that is a classic staple. Probably shouldn't have as many of them, possibly with fried bread.
Yeah.
But I think it is important that when we go to buy something at the supermarket, at the shops, that we can be guaranteed that it's not going to include pork that has gone off.
That's disgusting. I mean, it just makes you think. The other story about bread and this story, you want to support your butcher and your baker, but we all know, because of, I suppose, the undercutting of pricing from supermarkets, that actually the costs are very, very expensive for butchers, and it's an expensive way to shop.
You said twice today about going to your baker. Couldn't tell you whether in Belfast or in London. I couldn't tell you whether there's a baker.
Really? My mum would go to the baker every day on the way home from work, and we'd have fresh donuts from the baker, and we'd always have fresh bread, and she still to this day only eats fresh.
Really sadly, I live not far.
So this baker exists?
There's bakers everywhere.
It's not bakers everywhere.
There's a baker on my local high street. When you drop me home, I'll point it out to you.
Our bakery chain closed.
I drop you home. Don't tell people that.
Why not?
Because you're just capitalising on mixing with me, rubbing shoulders with me, hoping people think there's an affair going on to enhance your reputation. Where's your baker?
I don't even know what
Do you know of any bakers?
Well, sadly, no. I literally live in a place called Baker's Arms. And there was a lovely baker there. It was part of a chain that I grew up, because I'd lived not too far from where I grew up. Percy Ingles was the bakers for that bit of North East London, and sadly they've closed down. And entirely down to these pressures, I think.
Freddie, butcher, baker man?
We have a ridiculously expensive butcher near us, which I remember when we bought the place, it was sort of sold as a selling point that they had this amazingly expensive baker. But I don't go there. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but you won't get gone-off pork from there.
No, but I never trust the meat. The meat industry is telling porkies. They always
are. There you go.
Very good.
But no, this conversation is making me so hungry now. I want pork scratchings.
Oh, God.
Oh,
yes,
I love pork scratchings.
So do I. It's all salt. We're salt addicts, and it seems by the topics that you're choosing, Freddie, you might be a cannabis addict. You've chosen this
Yes.
one in the Times.
Emma's doing food, I'm doing drugs.
Yeah.
But I chose this story because I just love the picture. Have you got the picture? I don't know.
This is The Guardian.
Yeah.
This is in the Times. It's a guy hiding from the police.
Oh, brilliant.
And look where he's hiding. And I love the
Do you
policeman
want me to hold
sticking...
it up at one of the...
I thought they were going to put it up. Never mind. Can you
Where
hold
do you
it
want
up?
me to hold it, guys? Give me some clues.
So they've come out the Velux window.
The Velux window.
Roof.
And he is just standing on the top of it.
It's absolutely... And what you can't see properly there is that the policeman is peering out the window underneath it.
Yeah. He was eventually caught, but he's my hero for the day. He's called Eamonn and he's an Albanian who came over on a boat, paid €5,000 to come over on a boat. And that's interesting because the Albanians have taken over the cannabis trade in London. Used to be the Vietnamese, but now it's the Albanians.
But he's Merseyside-based, I believe.
He accepts that he's done wrong.
He does. He was paid £100 a day. He was previously homeless, so he was paid £100 to basically live in this cannabis farm.
Yeah.
And essentially be the security guard, I guess, for it. So I don't think he was the one
gardener
creaming off the
for it.
profits off the top. He was paid.
I think there are no profits anymore. My understanding is that the cost of living crisis, the cost of energy has been disastrous for cannabis growing.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah,
As your drugs correspondent, I can confirm that.
The hydroponic lights and all of that cost quite a lot. Yeah.
Well, on the subject of energy, Freddie, we go to The Guardian. The government plans to capture and store carbon dioxide in undersea caverns. Now, the Energy Secretary was making reference to this today. I had no idea what he was talking about. But can you explain this from this article?
I think this is the other side of the energy story that all the other papers have gone with today, which is that as well as trying to charge us a lot more for using gas, the government is actually making a big play for gas or gas storage in the North Sea. And this is controversial from an environmental perspective, which is what The Guardian's interested in. And we're going to use a field called, I always want to call it Rosebud, but it's Rosebank, which is a huge gas field. And I think it's it's previously used gas exploratory sort of caverns under the sea that we're going to fill with gas and use that as storage. It's meant to be very important for our future gas consumption, and the government are very keen to do it.
Wow.
What is there else to say about that?
Well,
I thought you hadn't had enough Grant Shapps for one day. So
True, fair enough. Well, should we talk about the Pope? Because, I mean, I'm just going to check, Charlie, have we got time for... No, we haven't got time. Ignore me. No time for the Pope.
We say goodbye to you guys.
Thank you, Freddie.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so
Fairly
much.
informative and
Thanks, Emma.
entertaining. The reason is Charles Bronson, before a parole board, set to decide today if he should be freed from prison after 50 years behind bars. And this week his ex-wife, Irene Dunroe, has revealed how Charles would spend his first day as a free man. Irene, good morning to you. Good to see you.
Good morning. Nice to see you as well.
Irene, how do you think he would, if he was freed, how would he spend that first day of freedom?
His first day of freedom, a friend's already arranged for a nice car to pick him up and take him to a Greasy Spoon cafe where you get all these breakfasts with all grease and, eggs, fried eggs, chips, everything you can think of for breakfast. He's going to have double of every one of those and really enjoy it. And then he's going to go for a walk with bare feet along grass. He can't wait to walk on grass. It's been over, God knows how long it's been before he's ever walked on grass. And then he's going to go to an art shop, and he's going to have a good look at all the paints and the oils and everything and paintbrushes, because he's never used anything like that before. And he's just so excited about doing that. And then in the evening, he's going to go and have a nice steak. Well done, he likes it well done. He's going to have fried onions, fried mushrooms, everything. He's really going to thoroughly enjoy it. And that's just what he wants to do, just an everyday sort of things.
But Irene, what if he doesn't get out?
If he doesn't get out, Well, it's, what's the moral to the story? They let murderers out, they let, they rapists, paedophiles, terrorists out. And Mick's never murdered anybody. He's been violent in prison because of his treatment. He's been very, very violently treated in prison. So, at the end of the day, years and years of that sort of treatment, you retaliate. If he doesn't get out, he will be very, very disappointed. He's been closest to freedom than he's ever been before. 6-7 years, he's done nothing at all. Nothing at all. Even though he's still been wound up a lot by different guards, they still do things, but he hasn't had the brutality that he has lived with for a good 35 years of it. He will be devastated, but what we would like is for him to go to a hostel for 6 months or maybe 12 months, whatever. He'll sort of have to be there in the evenings, and he'll have time out during the day, but he'll probably have to be tagged. But at least he can just taste freedom. He's 70 years old.
Yeah, it's a sort of halfway house you're talking about here.
Yes, yeah. If he has, that'll be great for him. He can just taste freedom. I mean, if he doesn't get this and he's downgraded to another category, I mean, that's going to be at least another 2-3 years in prison before he even gets a chance of a parole again. And yet they let somebody like Gary Glitter out. He didn't even have parole.
Yeah.
And all those things he did to all those different children. I mean, where is the moral in this?
Well, he's back inside, isn't he? We should say. But listen, it's not ever just about the prisoners themselves. There's always the family members that are affected by incarceration of a loved one. And I know that he says it would mean the world for his mother if he was released today. Tell us about that.
His mum is 95. I mean, she's lived with this all her life. My son's 50. It's not George Bambi, by the way. He is not the proper son. Whether I'm allowed to say that, I don't know, but he is not the proper son. My son, Michael, is the proper son. He has lived with this, as I have as well, since Mick first went into prison. It's an ongoing thing. And it's time he was out. People do think he's a murderer. They think he's a mass murderer, but he isn't. He's never murdered anybody. Never. And he wasn't that violent at the very, very beginning. It was the 60s. It was the mods and the rockers. He was a mod, I was a mod. And the mods and rockers used to have fights, but not fights like nowadays. They never used to use knives. There was never any drugs, no guns.
What about...
It was just fun.
Irene, what about that poor teacher that he held hostage, though? I mean, he'll be worrying about today, won't he?
No, he actually said on the documentary that it was time that he was freed. He's done more than enough punishment. Was he killed? No. Was he? He's still there talking. Was he harmed physically? Only in his mind, he says. But even so, he had this nervous disease because of what Mick did in retaliation to his remarks that he had made about his paintings and drawings. And yet he can still, that same teacher can still actually go walking around, do interviews, television interviews, be broadcast. Thought if you had really bad nervous allergies or whatever they are, through Mick's treatment of him, which he never actually lay a hand on him, how could he do all that?
Right. Well, we'll find out later today what happens, Irene. Yeah, thank you very much for your testimony, and it must be good for him knowing that someone like you is there to support him on the outside if it works out for him. But Irene Dunroe, lovely. What, Irene?
Yeah, sorry, Eamonn, but the thing is that I know what's actually gone on from the very beginning because I had all the letters. So I know exactly the truth of what's going on.
Okay.
And he's not an animal, he's a man.
Okay.
And he should be given his right.
Thanks, Irene. Irene, we're up against the clock. I've got to say goodbye to you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. We'll leave it there, back after the break.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes and Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Dubes and Co. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m.
As we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Households will be penalised for using gas as the government launches a major new energy security plan.
Hello there, very good morning to you just after 9 o'clock on this Thursday the 30th of March. You're tuned in to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. People using gas instead of electricity in their homes could see their bills go up by £100 a year as part of the government's new energy security strategy, dubbed Powering Up Britain. The Energy Secretary, Grant Shapps, says carbon capture is key to the plan.
Probably have the ability to store billions, if not trillions of pounds worth of other people's carbon in those locations. So you say it's going to cost us. Actually, it could be a massive market, effectively an export, if you like, for Britain.
That announcement comes as the Chancellor accuses President Biden of protectionism over his plan to offer green tax breaks to American car manufacturers. Jeremy Hunt is concerned the levies could wipe out the UK's £4.3 billion car export market to America.
The King has pledged to strengthen ties with Germany on day one of his first state visit as monarch. Speaking at a banquet in Berlin alongside the German president, he said the relationship between the two countries had mattered greatly to his late mother.
Holmes is the new leader of Scotland. Today he'll face his first minister's questions. Comes after he selected his top team with the cabinet for the first time made up of a majority of women.
Charles Bronson's claimed that he's a model prisoner ahead of a parole decision on whether to free him today. Dubbed Britain's most notorious inmate, he spent almost 50 years behind bars after being originally jailed for armed robbery.
Our top story this morning is that households using gas instead of electricity could see their bills increase by £100. This is part of a new energy security strategy.
Yeah, the Energy Secretary, Grant Shapps, has unveiled his plan, dubbing it Powering Up Britain, during a visit to a nuclear fusion development facility in Oxford.
Earlier on this very programme, he told us that carbon capture will be crucial to all of this.
Cost and potentially a huge market. So this is something I wouldn't expect most of your viewers to know about, but there's something called carbon capture, utilisation and storage. It's a method of capturing carbon and then storing it largely under the sea, actually in the old oil and gas locations. And if we probably have the ability to store billions, if not trillions of pounds worth of other people's carbon in those locations. So you say it's going to cost us. Actually, it could be a massive market, effectively an export, if you like, for Britain, as big as, even bigger than oil and gas has been for us.
Forgive me, there were two key words used there, probably and could be, which suggests that this is a bit of a gamble. And indeed, a lot of experts are warning that this isn't even proven technology that you are backing here and it might not work out.
So we're putting £20 billion into that. Today I'm announcing the locations where those programs are going to get going. But we know that you can actually do this. It's technically possible to do. Yes, there are lots of practical implications of doing it, but it could be a market worth trillions of pounds. Put this into perspective, we've got space to store about 78 billion tonnes of carbon, and that would be enough for the whole of Europe's carbon for 250 years. That could bring in a lot of money to the UK.
Joining us now, our political reporter Olivia Utley, to tell you what this means to you. What does it mean to people's bills?
Yes, so essentially this plan is the measures that are being laid out today are less dramatic than the Labour Party hoped for, less dramatic than green energy campaigners hoped for. That is pretty good news for our bills. It means that the government isn't dashing towards net zero more quickly than it was intending to. But essentially, the big issue is that if you heat your house with gas, then your bills are going to go up. At the moment, the government subsidises gas bills and subsidises electricity bills, but to a lesser extent. Yeah. And they're planning to turn that on its head. And so electricity bills will be subsidised more and gas bills will be subsidised less. Now, obviously, the majority of the UK uses quite a lot of gas to heat their homes at the moment. Very few households are powered only by heat pumps. And this is a government plan to try and a sort of carrot and stick approach to try and get more people to convert over to heat pumps. But obviously there are quite a lot of problems with heat pumps that have been detailed recently.
I thought that the government had a problem with subsidies. That's what they're critical of the Americans for doing in this whole sector.
Yes, so the other part of this plan, Jeremy Hunt has lambasted Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, as it's called, the US plan to get to net zero in the Times today. And his argument is that the only thing that the US is doing is putting taxpayer money into the pockets of green energy companies to try and help them. And Hunt says that his plan is a more free market approach, whereby, yes, there will be some forms of subsidy, but they're relatively small in comparison to the American plan anyway. And the bulk of the plan will be cutting through red tape and cutting through regulation to make it easy for investors to invest in green energy. So there's very tight regulation around offshore wind farms at the moment. That's all being ripped up. That said, there are a lot of campaigners pushing for less regulation around onshore wind energy, and we haven't seen any of that. But then the carbon capture as well, regulation will be cut around that, make it much easier for people to invest in carbon capture technology. And it's this sort of free market, high-tech, high-science approach that Jeremy Hunt is championing, as opposed to the high-subsidy approach of the US.
Well, stand by, Olivia. We might come back to you. We've got actually Shadow Minister for Levelling Up, Alex Norris, on the line. And I want to pick up, Alex, with you with some of the points Olivia was making there. I don't know if you were able to hear some of that, but she was kind of explaining the differences, I suppose, between the American approach to this and the British approach at the moment. But I understand Labour is actually more supportive of the American approach, which the Tories are calling protectionist.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're advocating for, Isabel, is that we want to see Britain be a clean energy superpower. That's what the Americans are going for. They want, as always, they're looking at new markets, and this is going to be a huge new market over the next few decades, and they want to be dominant in it. And I think we should be seeking to do that as well, particularly in the clean energy space. I actually agree with some of the points made by Grant about carbon storage. That's a real opportunity. But actually today, what we've heard from the government, it's the same old press releases revived, and we were being told they're a revolution, they're anything but, particularly disappointing with an absence of onshore wind. So, the current measures just frankly don't cut it.
What do you want to do with onshore wind? I mean, apparently they're going to ramp up offshore wind, and what are you looking for?
We want to end the moratorium on it, which basically means that you can't have any at the moment. We know that not everywhere would want to have it, not everywhere would be suitable to have it. But if communities did want those things, they wanted to get the benefits of that clean energy for themselves, they should have that opportunity. That would be better for those communities, but better for all of us instead. But that moment's being wasted, I'm sad to say.
Your opposite number, Michael Gove, he would probably agree that he wants to see that, and it's something that he's struggling to get through for all those reasons that you outline. I mean, constituents have to also have their issues addressed, and this is problematic. Nobody wants to have huge wind turbines in their backyards. That presumably won't be any different under a Labour government.
I mean, I'd be quite interested to test that, Isabel, if I'm honest.
I'm sure you would.
We know that in the past. Yeah, but when the moratorium was a David Cameron era thing, so that's how long ago since we've properly had a chance to talk about this. Since then, people are loads and loads more conscious of their bills now, and of course, people over the last year or two have been under real pressure. I actually think, especially with people being more climate conscious as well, that you can have that conversation with communities and say, look, this is the benefits you'll get from that. So what we're saying is, let's let that process happen. Let's let people have that choice. You just talked. Both you and Eamonn talked about free markets there. So, well, OK, let's let people make that decision, because this is a very clean energy source. It's not the only answer to the problem. Of course it's not. But as part of that basket of solutions, this has got to be part of it. So, I think that's a real missed opportunity.
An opportunity for you at the local government elections, which are fast approaching. Council tax, with the cost of living crisis, it's a big burden for many people, and it has to be said. Looking around the country, council taxes are usually higher in Labour boroughs than they are in Conservative or Lib Dem boroughs. What do you plan to do about that, if anything?
No, I mean, that's not true. The average council tax in a Labour-controlled authority is over £300 less than in a Conservative one. Nevertheless, we know that up and down the country this month, we all will have had that bill drop on our mat. Council tax is a big fixed cost that we know that families really don't look forward to seeing that bill. The government, the way they funded local government, means that virtually every local authority is putting up their council tax by 5% this year. We say that given how hard people are finding things at the moment, that shouldn't be happening, and that we, if we were in government, would step in to stop that increase and fund it by properly implementing the windfall tax. We think that's a fairer way to meet current costs in this country.
Who are unhappy with costs and the way life is at the moment are those working in the NHS, often those people working in social care as well. Now, if you freeze council tax, how are you going to continue to fund this hugely growing area where we have an ageing population?
Because the money going to local government won't be less, it'll just be coming from different sources. So rather than that 5% coming from the pockets of people up and down the country, it will be funded by a proper implementation of the windfall tax, particularly closing the loopholes that the big companies are using to avoid paying it, and using that money to put that into local governments. There'll be no diminution of investment in social care, which we know is badly needed. But as I say, rather than coming from hard-pressed families, it'll be coming from companies that have made unexpected profits.
Alex, what will suffer? Something has to give somewhere to take the pressure off, homeowners to pay their council tax. So what would they be more likely to see a fall in standards with?
Well, that's not the proposition in front of you today. As I say, we know as a result of extraordinary global conditions over the last year, oil and gas producers have made huge profits they weren't expecting to make. They themselves
get all
have
that.
said
And already taxed disproportionately in that industry compared to others. And the Conservatives have now also brought in a windfall tax. So, you're going to push all of that investment elsewhere.
The problem with that, Isabel, is the windfall tax, isn't an effective one. There's too many deductions. It's set at a lower rate than comparative European countries. They should have brought it in. We would backdate it to the beginning of last year when we first called for it. It is not being used as effectively as it could be. At the end of the day, politics is a choice. Who do we think should be meeting the need for increasing costs in social care and in council services more generally? Is it hard-pressed families up and down the country, or is it big companies that have made unexpected profits? We've set out our view. You of course, may have a different one, as others who are watching may do, but people want to know as an opposition what we think and what we would do. Well, this is what we think and what we would do.
Well, Alex, I don't envy you or council colleagues their job, whatever party they represent. Thanks for trying to explain that to us. Alex Norris is the Shadow Minister for Levelling Up. We've got to leave it there. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thanks, Eamonn.
Time is 9:14. Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories. 3 people have been arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to murder after 2 men were shot dead in Cambridgeshire last night. Police say the incidents in Sutton and Bluntisham were linked and targeted. A shotgun and a car believed to have been used in the attacks have both been recovered.
Plans to increase the state pension age to 68 have been delayed. The age is due to rise in 2044, but ministers were planning to bring that forward to 2035.
The Vatican says Pope Francis has a respiratory infection and will need to spend a few days in hospital for treatment. It's understood the 86-year-old had complained of breathing difficulties in recent days.
And we wish His Holiness all the best, and he's in our prayers. To the point, coming up at 9:30, Andrew Pearson, Beverly Turner, to tell us, what are you doing, guys?
Morning.
Morning.
We're going to be continuing some of the conversations you've had. We're going to be having a discussion about this cashless society and what that means. I think it's an incredibly important topic that we need to discuss what that means, the pros and cons of that. And we've got quite a lot of royal stuff in the show today.
It's the first state visit by the King, and he's the first British monarch to address the German Parliament, so we'll be taking him
in German.
In German. Yeah. I think he seemed to be doing it very well in German, although I can't speak German, so I don't know.
What's the name of the German president?
Here we go. We've been struggling.
What's the name?
Holmes. No, the president, I don't know.
Frank-Walter Steinmeier.
No, I don't, exactly. I was having that discussion last night.
The name of the Chancellor?
Scholz.
Olaf Scholz, yeah.
Olaf Scholz.
But the thing is, we had to ask ourselves what the role is of the president. Apparently it's voted for, and you're only allowed 2 terms, but it's not a political position. No. It's just a kind of ceremonial signing off.
All of that.
Yeah, the president.
And that's the future if we get rid of the monarchy here, which is why one of the many reasons we want to keep the monarchy.
We're going to be dealing with this Times story as well, front page. Parents kept in the dark over gender. How many schools are letting children change their gender in the school without telling the parents? Amazing, how dare they?
Is that something that you would, upon visiting a school in consideration for your kids, would you say to the head teacher, what's your policy on this, and rule out a school based on their answer?
They will have to say that we accept all genders, sadly. This is not sadly necessarily, not saying, but my children's school have unisex toilets.
OK, we have to go because we're going to a film set right after this. Guys, see you at 9:30. Thank you very much indeed. And that is the film set of The Crown, filming in St Andrews to recreate William and Kate's What are we showing the Pope for?
Not sure.
It was very annoying. That was His Eminence, the Pope, His Holiness, the Pope there. And so William and Kate's romance, and we're going behind the scenes on that one, live from St Andrews and the university next.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories, controversies and issues.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
It's 5 times the opinion, 5 times the debate, and 5 times the fun. The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You could wink at the end. I can't Britain's
wink,
listening.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Well, the seaside town of St Andrews on the east coast of Scotland has been taken over by film crews recently and actors for Netflix's 6th series of The Crown.
It is home, of course, to the famous university where William and Kate, now known as the Prince and Princess of Wales, first laid eyes on each other in 2001.
As well as the lookalike actors, many of the university's real-life students have been featured as extras, and we can now speak to 2 of them. Let's go and meet Verity Leake and Jasmine Williams. Very nice to see you both.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Good. Listen, did you decide to go to St Andrews? Come on, be truthful, just because Kate and Wills went there?
Actually, no, my dad was at St Andrews. But, of course, that was one of the... Other than that, it was a big factor.
So are you both hoping
not
secretly...
For me, I think it's really small. Sorry?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that, Jasmine.
Oh, I would say it wasn't really a factor for me. It's just particularly strong for my department. So that was mainly encouraged me to apply.
And Jasmine, you've featured in the TV series, I understand.
Yes, so lots of students sort of applied. I think most of the people in the town you'll see will probably be students, which was really nice to see. It was just sort of quite exciting to have them in town, I suppose. And it was a really exciting thing to be involved with, just sort of just play a tiny part in, I guess.
Are you both fans of The Crown? I mean, some people say that it's getting a bit too close to, recent times, and obviously all the controversy about Princess Diana's crash, and obviously questions about Meghan featuring in it. You're part of that now. Are you reconciled with that?
I don't know. I haven't thought a huge amount about it. I haven't actually watched the Crown series, but my family are quite they really like it. But I suppose if it was in St Andrews, you didn't really have a huge amount of choice. But I think I've watched the first 2 seasons and I did really enjoy it. I think it is really important to put out those sort of disclaimers that they've done more recently. I think that's been really important.
And Verity, what is going on at the moment? I mean, or have you been able to recently witness filming going on? And if so, what's that like? What disruption does that cause?
Well, I don't think it's been much disruption at all. I think everyone's really enjoyed, it's been quite dramatic, really. It's definitely been talk of the town. So I've actually seen so much filming, mainly because we're in the halls that William and Kate were in. So as in one day they were filming directly below me, like my room, but 2 floors down. And they had just people walking in and out of our halls, and they had food for the film set on the side. And then pretty much from all our windows, we could see people with cameras and different parts of the set that they were using, different locations. And I actually ended up bumping into Prince William when I was walking back to my halls one night, which was actually quite exciting. Well, Prince William, the actor, not actually Prince William.
And do you think he's a good casting choice? Do you think he, and indeed Kate, do you think they look suitably like the real deal?
Yes, I was so surprised when I saw the actor. I was like, oh my goodness, especially from the side profile. He looks just like Prince William. But then I've never seen Prince William in real life, so I don't have a huge amount to compare to. But I think, I don't know about Kate, though. I actually didn't see Kate.
To meet your Prince Charmings whilst you're up at St Andrews, or perhaps even, Verity, you and the fake Prince William might get it on after your late night.
I mean, maybe. I was lucky enough. I spoke very, very briefly to the actors for Prince William and Prince Charles, and I think they were just very down to earth and very sort of approachable and very ready to have conversations with people about the town, which is really nice to see, considering the scale of it. But I don't know about your conversation with him. Maybe. I live in hope.
Verity and Jasmine, an absolute delight. What are you studying, incidentally, the two of you? Let us know. You're in first year, as I understand. What are you studying, Verity?
I do art history.
Very good. And Jasmine?
I'm studying philosophy and theology.
Well, good luck to both of you in all that lies ahead. Enjoy the ride, enjoy the adventure. Lovely talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's it from us. We leave you absolutely
girls.
delightful.
Yeah.
Just before we go, some breaking news to bring you. Margaret Ferrier, the MP, it's been recommended that she's suspended from the Commons for 30 days. You might remember that she was caught breaking COVID regulations. She caught the train after having tested positive and came down to the Commons. Bev and Andrew, I'm sure we'll have much more on that with the point. But from us, goodbye. Have a lovely day.
We will be discussing that this morning, and also a big royal kind of special today.
Cheers, King Charles, of course.
We're still doing that, aren't we? We're all still saying Prince Charles.
Queen Consort, their first state visit, Germany, hugely important. Of course, they were supposed to be in France too, but that's all been cancelled because of Macron and the riots. And we are going to talk about gender IT kids in schools.
And cashless society. Don't go anywhere.
I like cash.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8,